Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Elisa Slazinska, and I work for the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, BACP. Welcome to the BACP Business Education Workshop Webinar Series. We have adapted our regular business education workshops at City Hall into these webinars until further notice. On behalf of our Commissioner, Rosa Escarino, I want to inform you that business licenses can be processed online where applicable by visiting chicagobusinessdirect.org. And any websites or emails that I mention will be posted in the chat box, so you'll be able to reference them there. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn about the program, please visit chicago.gov/business-education. To help guide your business and employees during Chicago's reopening process, please visit chicago.gov/reopening. Also, BACP and the City of Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications created Shy Biz Emergency Alerts. You can opt in to receive targeted emergency alerts for the business community. If you are interested, please visit chicago.gov/Shy Biz Alerts. And once again, all that information will be posted in the chat box, so you will be able to reference websites and emails. And we encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box and send questions to all panelists. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And today's webinar will be presented by Donna Rockin, Managing Partner of Rockin Enterprises. The webinar will be How to Write a Winning Business Plan, What You Need to Know. Welcome, Donna.
Hi, thank you, Elisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, feel free to begin.
Great. So today we're going to learn how to write a business plan, but there's something I'd like to recommend, and we can post this later. There are handouts that I sent to Elisa, and you can send them out via email after the lecture or however you want. But one of the things the people who are listening in should look at is the business model canvas. You can just Google it, business model canvas, and get a template, although I think I've sent it to you, Elisa, so you can hand it out later. And there is a companion book for it. And the book is called The Business Model Generation, and it's by Eric Rice, R-I-E-S. It's Eric, E-R-I-C-R-I-E-S. I don't work for him. I don't have stock in his publisher. But what that program does is it gives you a template to sort of sketch out a rough business plan before you sit down to write it. And you do need a written business plan because a landlord will want to see it, a banker will want to see it, vendors will want to see it before they start, sending you stuff to see that you're really a legitimate business. But the business model canvas helps you organize your thoughts quickly. One thing about the book, The Business Model Generation, get the book from the Chicago Public Library or Amazon, buy it used, but buy the real book. Do not buy the ebook. I made that mistake, and the first sentence is, this book is better as a book. And it is better as a book, so do not buy the ebook. But now we're going to get ready and talk about a business plan. It's very methodical. There is a template for the business plan that I had given to Elisa, and she will send that out too. So it asks a bunch of questions. We're going to go through this. This is me, so I've been around a long time. And a business plan is a written document that clearly defines the goals of a startup or an existing business. If you are an existing business and you're struggling now because of the pandemic and you have to reinvent yourself, you can use a business plan to outline specific goals and methods for achieving these goals. So a business plan is a living, breathing document, and whether you've been in business 20 years or you're just doodling now on paper because you don't know if your old day job might come back after the pandemic or if the business is shut down, it helps you organize your thought, but you should rewrite it and revisit it about every 12 to 18 months, 24 at the longest, because things do change, and sometimes your customers define what they want your business to be versus what you thought it was going to be. You know, they start asking you for a service, you say, oh, sure, I can do that, and all of a sudden you realize that's the service that they're really buying. What's included in a business plan? The executive summary, the business description, the product or service. And here, when I say product, it's interchangeable, product or service. The marketing plan, the operations and management plan, who's going to do what to whom, how you're going to divide power if you have a partner, and the financial plan. And there's also documents that I've sent to Lisa that she can send you out tomorrow as well or the next day. So, oh, sorry, I was going in the wrong direction. No, wait, why is this? Oh, there. All right, guess I wasn't clicking well. So the executive summary, you should write it at the end when you've done your whole business plan, then write it, and it goes in the first page, but it's easier to write it succinctly and clearly if you write it after you've done the rest of the business plan, because it's really only supposed to be a couple of paragraphs, and it summarizes what is unique about your business. And what can be unique about your business is that you are adding a new business to the neighborhood, even if it's a common business. So if you want to open up a dry cleaner, and I've never looked up on Google how many dry cleaners there are in Chicagoland, but even if there's 3,000 dry cleaners in the Chicagoland proper, and you want to open up a new one, as long as you're the only one in a mile radius, you might be really successful because people don't like to go too far to drop off their dirty clothes or even if you open up a laundromat, you know, they don't want to travel. So sometimes the uniqueness is just you're new to the neighborhood and it's not like you've invented the next Grubhub or Spot Hero. And it includes your product service description. You describe your target market, who's going to be the heaviest users, and your overall goals and objectives for your business. But it's only a few paragraphs, a page and a quarter or a half at the most, but it goes first, but you write it last. In the business description, you describe the business in detail, what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, you know, the full name, the location, describe the legal structure. And I had a client call me the other day, and they were filling out paperwork for an SBA loan, and she thought the legal structure meant that she had to write how many shareholders she had and who owned what share. And no, the legal structure is just, are you a sole proprietor? Are you a simple partnership? Are you an LLC? Are you a C corporation, which is what big giant corporations are, or a subchapter S corporation? That's your legal structure. And really, unless you have very little risk of ever being sued or you own nothing, I recommend an LLC, a sub S, and a C corporation if you're ever going to have to need to go public, or if you are going to need to raise a lot of money from investors, from venture capitalists, because it's easier if you're a C corp. But you can also, if you're starting out small, you're a seamstress, there's very little chance you'll get sued. You can start off as a sole proprietor and then switch once your business gets bigger. What you can't do, because this is a red flag for the IRS, is you can't change your legal structure every year. But, you know, you can start one way, and then as you grow, you can change and change your legal structure. But you do need an attorney for the LLC, the sub S, and the C corp. And you should use one, even if it's a simple partnership, but we'll talk more about that later. Describe what makes your business unique, and it could be new technology, it could be fabulous packaging, or sometimes, like I said, it's just because you are going to be the first liquor store in the neighborhood. Describe why your business will succeed. What do you do? So is it your customer service? Is it your, hours of operation? Is it that you accept all sorts of credit, or you're easy, convenient parking, or you're right near an L stop or a bus stop? What will make you so successful? The product service description. What is your product or service? What exactly are you selling? Is it clothing? Is it dry cleaning services, but you're also going to have a wash and fold service? Summarize any key technology or concept. Do people send you a message and you go pick up their dirty clothes at their home or their apartment building? Is there key technology? What, concept or strategy is your business based on? And what features and benefits does your product or service have? And when you describe features, you should talk about features, the advantage, and the benefit, because people always want to know what's in it for me. So if you talk about, it's called fabbing, and it's feature, advantage, benefits. How does your product or service solve or satisfy your customers' needs uniquely? What is so unique about your product or service? And like I said, you can open up a daycare center. It's been done before, but if there's none in your neighborhood, or if they're so overcrowded that, you have to put a child on a wait list for 3 years, and by that time he's ready for first grade, what's unique about your business that will make you successful? And describe why a customer would buy from your business. And it might be, like I said, your hours of operation, convenient parking, great location, tons of foot traffic. And you need to develop a marketing plan. You define your target market in detail. When somebody tells me that their product is for everybody, I want to smack them, because there is always a primary target audience. Who is going to be the heaviest users? And then there might be a secondary audience, the next target group of heavy users, and maybe even a third target audience. So if we were talking about makeup, the first target audience might be women 18 to 35. And the second heaviest users might be high schoolers. So it might be 14 to 18-year-old. And the third heaviest users might be the 35 to 50-year-old set. But there's always going to be a really, really heavy user. And you also have to think about, with your target audience, is the buyer the same as the user? Because it isn't always the case. They've done research, and for a lot of products, except it used to be for hard liquor, cars, and home electronics, women made all the brand decisions. And so even if they bought more beer, even if they weren't beer drinkers, because hubby would say, pick up a 6-pack, and she tended to do the grocery shopping. And a lot of men don't like to shop, so the ladies in the household buy all their clothes. My aunt used to buy my uncle's shoes, which I always thought was bizarre, but she didn't like to shop. She'd buy 2 sizes at what was then Marshall Fields and take back a pair, the smaller or the bigger pair. So really define your target audience, and also think about baby food products or kiddie cereal. Yes, they market Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms to young children, but mom has to be convinced, or dad who's ever doing the grocery shopping, that there's enough nutrition in it that they're willing to buy it and serve it to Junior. Also, analyze your direct competitors and your indirect or alternative competitors. So if you're coming up with a new sparkling soda pop, your direct competitors might be Coca-Cola, 7-Up, root beer, Dad's root beer, Canada Dry ginger ale. But then also for indirect competitors, it might be all those flavored seltzered waters or it might be juice or milk. So because it quenches thirst, it might be juice boxes or those Sun Capri things. So you have to think of your direct competitors and your indirect or alternative competitors. What else would solve the problem that isn't your exact product or service? And then also think of your positioning of your product. Are you going to be below the competition, on par with the competition, or above the competition in pricing? So that, and sometimes you're really selling sizzle. I don't know how many of you listening in today are men versus women, but especially in women's cosmetics, Lancome owns L'Oreal. So you can probably buy Lancome mascara for $30 or L'Oreal, mascara for about $9 or $10 or $11. And it's probably the same mascara in a different package. Yes, the Lancome will be much fancier, but it might not be any different than the one that's in the plastic container that's marketed under L'Oreal at all the drugstores and Target, et cetera. So, but think about your positioning. I usually recommend never be below the competition because it's too hard to make money that way and be profitable. And that is the whole goal of the business, is that you want to be profitable. Because if you cut your price and then your competition cuts their price, after a while, nobody's making money and you all go out of business. But you can be on par, slightly above, well above. Think of it also in terms of automobiles. There's the Cadillac. Then below it, there's the Oldsmobile, and then there's the Chevrolet. So they will all get you to your destination, but how much cushy comfort do you want on the inside and how many features and blind spot, notifications, et cetera. So that's what the positioning of your product is. Define the product packaging, and sometimes you are the product. Think about salespeople. Think about real estate agents. Think of how fancy real estate agents, if any of you have bought a condo or a single-family home, or even rented where you had the real estate agent find you a rental property, they are usually dressed to the hilt. They drive a gorgeous car. So when they take you around, they are communicating to you silently, I am going to find you your dream home, your dream condo, because look at how well I dress and the fancy car I drive. I am so successful. I will help you find your dream. And also think of product packaging. There's Dean's Milk Chug. It revolutionized the milk industry because before they were the square little wax boxes that didn't fit in the cup holder of a car. And so there's that. There's Tide Pods. There's now they make the rinse agent, the pods that go in the dishwasher, and so finish, et cetera. So packaging and convenience of packaging, can think of Pampers. Pampers really are not that old. I mean, they're probably 40, 50 years old, but before that, people used cloth diapers. So convenience can be a huge thing. And so sometimes you're selling a product that's as old as the hills, but the packaging is amazing. Look at all those little bottles of Purell they made, and then they made them in a little container with a hook so you could put it on your belt or purse, so it was always handy. And these days we need our Purell to be always handy. So packaging can do a lot to move a product, even if there's identical products to it. Where will your business be located? Is the right location critical? If you need a store, you want a real store, you want great foot traffic, visibility, easy parking, not good enough traffic that people find you, but not so awful that they hate coming down the street. And so, location can be very, very important. But if you are a consultant or you are a home chef and you are always going to somebody else's house, even now they have makeup artists where they go to the bride's home and do the bride and all the people in the wedding party. they are not going to the makeup artist's home. He or she is always going to the wedding party's home or hotel. So sometimes location isn't important at all. I do consulting. I usually go to the client. So, it's easy to run it from a home office. So think about, but sometimes you really do need great foot traffic. And if a business has failed and you want to open up the same business again, think long and hard about why it's failed. I know many of us know of a restaurant that's been 10 different restaurants in the same location, and they all went south. And you have to ask yourself, why? Was it that all the cuisines were bad, or was it that it didn't have parking, or it was too difficult to get to because they needed a left turn signal and they didn't have one, or they were on the wrong side of the street? So really think about, is the right location critical? This happens to be in Aurora, and I don't know if you can see the green little star right there, but that is a Dunkin' Donuts. And the Dunkin' Donuts does incredibly well because of the cross streets. It's at Eola and North Aurora Road. So at the intersection, it's a four-way stop, but it's easy to get into, if you're going west or you're going north and south. And so it's one of the busiest Dunkin' Donuts, or now I guess they're called Dunkin's, in Illinois, and it might be even in America. But if you look at this next slide, see the little A there? That was a retail clothing store on the backside of an industrial park. It died. It died, and it died quickly because nobody could find it. Nobody could see it. So, and you're expecting retail customers it's not even like an outlet mall where it's a venture and you drive to the prime outlets or whatever, and it's a whole day event and you're going to Gurney Mills. No, this was in the back of an industrial park. So think about location, location, location. In your marketing plan, how will you price your product or service? And that's where we talked about good, better, best, on par with the competition, above the price of the competition, or below the price of the competition. And how does your price compare to direct and indirect competitors? Really, they came out with Cosmic Crisp apples, and I was so anxious to try one that it was one apple. It was $4.95 a pound. It was a big apple, but still. But it was new and exciting, and they kept writing it up in all the papers and the news how it was a competitor to Honeycrisp. Save your money. I personally do not think it is nearly. It is crisp like a Honeycrisp, but not nearly as sweet. If you want a tart apple, you can buy a Granny Smith for a lot less money. So you have to think about, comparing yourself to direct and indirect competitors. If you want an apple, you can buy a Honeycrisp, which have come down in price, or any of the other popular brands, a Gala, a Pink Lady, or you can spend a fortune on Cosmic Crisp. But you should try it once at least. Can you be profitable at your chosen price? And that's really important. You don't want to pick a price point where you can't make money. And we're going to talk later so that you can check out, are you making money, or are you putting $1 in every order that goes out the door? How will you promote or advertise your product or service? And that's really important because a lot of you are not going to be able to afford mass media. Mass media is newspapers and TV commercials and radio spots, but oftentimes you can use a local radio. You can buy just where WBBM advertises. And if you think about it, the floor mat company, they just advertised on WBBM TV. That was all they advertised. And we're talking about, I'm trying to think of the WeatherTech, they just used to advertise on WBBM because you were in your car. They would do morning drive time and evening drive time when it was rainy and slushy and icky and snowy and terrible. And so they only used to do drive time, and then they added billboards. And now that they're so big and they have more products, et cetera, now they're also doing TV commercials. But, you know, this is Chicagoland's homegrown. They're out in the suburbs. But, you know, think about it. So you might be able to buy local radio. You can sometimes buy a local cut of the newspapers. Like if you're a South Side restaurant, you might be able to buy the South Side zip codes of the Sun-Times or the Tribune and not buy the whole entire run of press, it's called. And sometimes you can buy a regional section of a national magazine. So you have to think about those things. Otherwise, billboards might be more affordable for you, and direct mail might be more affordable. Certainly social media is a great way for you to reach your target audience, but you have to figure what is the most cost-effective way for you to reach your target audience. And for most of you, it's going to be targeted media, either Facebook or Instagram. And don't overlook YouTube videos. If you have a product, there, I wish I could shop there. It's somewhere in Wisconsin, but there's a hardware store that does great YouTube videos of how to use products when you have to do simple home repairs, where even me, as a mature woman, feel confidence enough that I could repair an asphalt driveway just by watching the guy's YouTube video. And so, you know, that drives customers in if you are showing people how to use your products. Think of Joanne Fabrics, and I think Michael's, they all have classes on how to knit or crochet or make jewelry or use a sewing machine. So think about how you're going to drum up business and get people into your store or to buy from you online. You have to answer a physical distribution question in your business plan. Where will your customers expect to find your product or service? Because it really needs to be every place they expect to buy. And I usually use the example of a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi. And I don't know if in America you're ever more than 300 yards away from something that dispenses a cold drink. I mean, they're in school lounges and in hospitals and in hallways and in waiting rooms, and they're on L platforms, and they're in grocery stores now before you check out, and sometimes they're in the entryway. I know you can buy a can of soda before you go into a Home Depot, and you can buy another one on the way out. So, you know, you really have to be where your customers will expect to find your product or service. But that gets some companies in trouble because they expand too fast, and then the business model changes. Look at Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond used to feel that they needed stores in certain locations that were high traffic areas and in the suburbs where people could go and they could look at stuff. And trust me, I love looking at the stuff in a Bed Bath & Beyond. But as people ordered more and more stuff online, they realized they didn't need as much real estate. So think about how your customers expect to find your goods or services or how they expect to buy them. And then how will you get if you're making a real product, how will you get it distributed? Because sometimes there's two-step distribution where you're a wholesaler and you sell to other companies. Most goods that show up in grocery stores or drugstores, the manufacturers sell to wholesale distributors who then break it down and ship it to the various stores. And then sometimes in the stores, if you ever notice those big bins at a CVS or a Walgreens, it's because no individual store wants to order a case of anything. So instead they order, 4 cans of this brand of hairspray and 3 boxes of that size of Band-Aids. So, you have to really think about how you get it from the manufacturer to a wholesaler. Do you need a sales force to sell it to the various wholesalers or direct to the big mass merchandisers? Or do you just ship it straight to the customers like Etsy does or all those products that are on Amazon? And then, do you know who your suppliers will be? How are you going to get the raw materials to make the thing that you're making? And never underestimate that you need more than one supplier. You need multiple bids, first of all, to keep the suppliers honest, but you also need to have multiple suppliers in your back pocket, because trust me, there will come a time when you can't get all the components because of a natural disaster. When they had that tsunami, all the Asian car companies couldn't get parts to repair stuff here in America because everything had been wiped out by the tsunami. And just think about fires, that they've had, and how, sometimes there's flooding in New Orleans, and, stores that have parts and stuff get flooded, and so you can't get the raw materials. Even now, I noticed that I couldn't find fudgicles in grocery stores here in Chicago. I live in the heart of the city. Went to 5 different stores, Jewel and other company stores, and I couldn't find fudgicles. And I thought, what's going on here? So I called today, and I said, please tell me you didn't discontinue them. So she looked it up. She said, no, we have not discontinued the 18-bar size. Good. She said, but we are having trouble getting ingredients. And that's why some of the store shelves are empty. And we don't know. It's because of the coronavirus. Maybe some factories shut down so they can't get the raw ingredients. So trust me, even a big company, Popsicle's owned by Unilever, one of the biggest companies in the world, and they're having product shortages. So think about have multiple suppliers. Your resource requirements, you need technology. What do you need? Equipment, software, hardware, connectivity. Are you going to have phones that accept Stripe or Google Pay or Apple Pay? Personnel requirements. Are you going to use part-time employees, full-time employees, contract employees? If you use contract employees, you must be very careful, because the Department of Labor wants you to pay taxes. When you get FICA and FUTA, it's you pay part of the tax, and then the corporation pays part of the tax. Well, the government gets both portions, and so they want people to be real employees. So if you do use a contractor, just Google the 1099 test, because a contractor give them a tax document that's called a 1099. But usually what makes somebody a real contractor, like a lawyer that you might hire, or you might hire a cleaning service to come into your shop and clean 3 times a week at night, it's behavior control. Do you control the behavior, or do they tell you when they can come? The financial control, they set their own pricing. You don't have much. You either accept it or you go on and find another one. And it's also like the key aspect of their business. Are they doing direct work for your business, or are they doing ancillary work, which would be an accountant or a bookkeeper that maybe comes to your office once or twice a week to check the books? So be very careful, but you also have to look at, do you need background checks? Do you need bonding? If you're going to open up a business that does carpet cleaning, you might want to bond all of your people who go out into the homes and clean the carpets. And so, you have to do a background check, and you have to get them bonded. So if they steal or break anything, you have insurance to cover it. And then what other resources do you need? Do you need a website? Do you need printed materials as leave behinds? Do you need physical? We talked a little bit about the real office space, or can you run it out of your basement or your, den? So a home office. So think about what you really need. You need high-speed internet. Think about what it is you need. And then external requirements. Do you need an accountant? Do you need an attorney? You might need an attorney to set up a partnership agreement. Always have a partnership agreement when you first start out, even if you're starting with your relative, your cousin, your schoolhood friend since you're 6 years old. Trust me, have a partnership agreement so that you know how to buy each other out if for some reason one of the other partners wants to go back to a day job, or if something happens tragic where they are hit by a truck, you might love your partner, but their spouse, not so much. So you want a predetermined way of how you're going to buy the partner out before that type of awful accident ever happens. And do you need a cleaning service? Do you need a garbage pickup service? You know, sometimes for certain types of jobs, you know, you can't use city garbage. You have to get independent garbage contractors to pick up your waste or recycling. Think about also, even if you do car repair, there are special rules now about how you dispose of motor oil. Not that I know what they are, I just know that there's special rules for them. So think about what you need to know for your resource requirements, besides just vendors. Also in resource requirements, think about if you're going to do cloud computing, you know, are you going to buy QuickBooks that's in the cloud so then your accountant doesn't have to come into you during COVID? They can just log in and see all your records. Do you need Microsoft Office? Do you need QuickBooks or something similar? Do you need Grasshopper.com? That's one of those services where if I call you on your office phone and you're not there, it will automatically search for you on your cell phone. Regis offices are some of those shared office spaces. There's plenty of them now. WeWork around the city. Are you going to need iPads because your customers are going to place their orders on iPads? I know I went to, it's not Smash Burger, it's the other burger joint. It's on Ohio, and there's also one on Michigan Avenue. But you place your order on an iPad now that it's coronavirus time. They don't have you talking to a human. And then smartphones. Do you need a website? You'll need a web name. You'll need GoDaddy or Namecheap or something. Shake Shack, yes, thank you. Somebody typed in this exactly. But Shake Shack, we went, and this time, you know, it was after COVID started. We wanted to support our local restaurants, but we had to order ourselves, and they had wipes, so you could wipe off the screen before you placed your order, and then wipe off, you know, we ate outside. It was during the summer. But there's GoDaddy or Namecheap or any of the other web hosting sites. Vistaprint gives you very inexpensive business cards, stationery envelopes. They even have templates now for booklets and flyers, so don't forget to check out them. And everybody should take Google My Business. It is it's a free service. And basically, when you Google a business, and it tells you what days they're open and the hours they're opened and where they're located and do you get to need directions and et cetera. And that is Google My Business, and it's totally free. So I strongly recommend that you take advantage of that resource. And then you also have to decide, are you going to use PayPal or Stripe or some other digital payment service or Google or Apple Pay? You know, these are things that even that many months ago, people used to pay with cash for a small amount. Now they don't even want cash because they can't make change because nobody's gone to the bank or those coin stores to turn in their change during the pandemic. Operations and management plan. So who will be in charge of your business? Who will be in charge of day-to-day operations? Do you need special qualifications or expertise to run this business? You know, if you have even a tattoo parlor or a beauty parlor, in a beauty parlor, you have to have people who are licensed beauticians. So, or salons and barbers have to be licensed and credentialed. So you have to think about what special expertise do you need. And sometimes, by the way, you know, even a hobby that you had that was a passion and a hobby while you had your day job and now you've been let go or furloughed or you're retired, you know, you can sometimes turn a hobby into a business. It's amazing how I had to look up online on how to sew a mask. I had a sewing machine, hadn't used it in over 20 years. But when we couldn't buy a mask, I had to learn how to sew one. And some very industrious women, they have websites now where they sell you patterns online and they sell products and they give tutorials. So think about what qualifications you need to run your business. And I'm sure that some of them probably had other day jobs, but then always had a passion for sewing. When will you need employees? When you have only your employees or your kids or family, you know, you don't have to have workman's comp. But as soon as you hire your first real employee, you need workman's comp, which is a type of insurance, so that if the workman gets hurt while doing his job, then, or her job, then you have insurance. By the way, speaking of adding employees, if you have teen children, it is tax deductible to pay them a salary instead of an allowance. And they're probably better at doing all the social media, and they're probably better at helping you set up a website. So if you have, you know, teenagers at home, 14, 15, 16, think about paying them as a salary and have them be your social media moguls. And salary is fully deductible, allowance is not. What salaries will you pay? You have to be able to afford it. Like I said, you have to have workman's comp once you hire a stranger, not related to the business. What training will you or your employees require? Even if you have just a franchisee where you pay a franchise fee and they set you all up, those cash registers are very difficult to work if you've never worked one before. So you have to train people how to use those fancy digital cash registers that also keep track of inventory. Will you give drug tests? Do you have to check backgrounds? Do you have to bond employees? So these are all things that should be described under the operations and management section. Who will manage the daily finances of the business and the long-term finances? Do you have a partner where they're in charge of sales and you're in charge of the books, or is it the other way around? So make sure you have enough checks and balances in place, but that you have all the essential operational and management functions covered. And it's okay, you know, if you do the selling and you have your spouse do the bookkeeping at night, you know, because that's their day job during the day, they're an accountant, that's okay too, but just have it worked out who's going to do what. And how will you process and record sales? Make sure you know how to do that in advance. And do you have special local or federal regulations? I already mentioned that if you have a garage and you change motor oil, you have to have a special way to get rid of motor oil. I don't know how, because I don't have a garage, but I know there's a special regulation. The same thing, and this is tricky, this is an Illinois trick. Do you know when to charge sales tax? And usually I do this in front of people and they say when. The trick is, in the state of Illinois, which they're thinking of changing it, right now you only charge sales tax on parts, not on labor, on real goods, not on labor. So when you go to the dentist, you know, they don't really charge you sales tax for that tiny little bit of white stuff that goes in a filling. But you don't pay sales tax to the dentist. If you get a car repair, they charge you sales tax on the parts that go into the car, but not on the labor to put them in the car. But they do want to start maybe to raise revenue, charge lawyers and accountants so that you would also pay for services, not just real hard goods products. But right now in Illinois, it's just products. Who will be in charge of inventory and inventory control measures? And this is very, very important, because you don't want, you know, even if it's a small neighborhood restaurant, you don't want the helping themselves to the ground chuck or the, you know, food that's in the freezer. What loss prevention policies do you have in place? You have to think about this, and you ought to state it in your business plan under the operations and management section. Choosing the right type of entity, like I said, there's a simple sole proprietor that's just you, and all your earnings and everything goes through your Social Security number. A simple partnership, it's just like a simple sole proprietor, but there's two of you or three of you, but you own various shares, but everything's just reported through your Social Security number. You should have a partnership agreement, and besides knowing how to sell the business when you're first in love and starting out, you should also have in the partnership agreement to use a third-party arbitrator. So that means that if you will have one partner and you each own 50%. And you can't decide what's the next level you should do in your business, or should you add a new good or a new service. You have a third-party arbitrator already identified, and they listen to each person pitch why they should do this or why they shouldn't, and then they decide what's best for the business. And so that's a very important part of a partnership agreement, the buy-sell agreement, what insurances you need and when. General liability, if you have a real storefront or do anything, you need as soon as you start making sales. You don't need, like if you, even if you have workmen in your place, you sort of need it, just in case they get hurt while they're working in your store because there was a hole in the floor and you didn't tell them. Workman's comp, when you have your first outside employee. Errors and omissions insurance is specialized insurance for service businesses, and typically it would be like for architects or attorneys. I'm not an insurance agent, though, so check with your own and get a good insurance agent who tells you when you can grow into different types of insurances. So errors and omissions is if you're an architect and you make a mistake, you have insurance to cover it to make good when they figure out something is wrong. Or the same thing with a lawyer if they didn't do something right and something wasn't included in, say, a trust, etc. Key employee insurance is that if you are only two partners and one does all the outside selling and one takes care of all the back-end office operations, you might want to have key employee insurance on the salesperson because they make the rain, they make the sales. And key employee insurance, it's like a life insurance policy. Basically, it pays you enough money back. And $1 million is not that much, but $1 million would give you money to hire a search firm, interview possible candidates, and then make a decision and get them up and running. You'd have the money with the $1 million payout if your partner gets hit by a truck. The other thing, but you don't need it right away when you're struggling, but at some point, you need a good insurance agent to review what insurances you do have so that every year you can see, do you need other types of insurances now that the business has grown? Maybe you want to add health insurance or et cetera, but key employee is one that you want to think about when you can't afford it. And then other big mistakes is underestimating either startup costs, and I should have corrected that slide to also say the sales cycle. Sometimes, the startup cost, it's always at least double what you think it's going to be, at least, and that's on a good day. And also the time to get everything done, because if you're doing even a simple build-up, this is one thing you need to know. When you sign a lease, a commercial lease, you get what's in the lease. If it's not in the lease, you don't get it. So if it's not air conditioned and you want air conditioning, you better see that the building owner puts it in. Otherwise, you're going to be putting it in and you can't take it with you. Another thing about it is better to pay more rent and have the building owner build out the space than you build out the space, because when you build out the space, the leasehold improvements, you only get to deduct 1/27 and a half. Why it's 27 and a half years, I have no idea. I don't know who makes up these tax codes, but it's 27 and a half years. So if you pay to drop the ceilings and add sexy lighting, and you have to pay for the air conditioning, and you have to put in a special bathroom to handle people with disabilities, you're paying for all that. But if you don't stay in that location 27 and a half years, you are leaving money on the table. If you make the building owner do the build out and you pay more in rent, rent is fully deductible from month one. So, and he probably knows more contractors and he owns more, so that he can do it cheaper than you can. So think about you underestimating your startup costs and also the sales cycle, because some things take a very, if you're selling a very big ticket item, some brilliant software that you've invented, and you're charging, $10 a year per employee, and it's and they have thousands of employees, they're not going to give you a decision yay or nay right away. It's going to take months of selling and presenting and telling this one, and then you find out they're not really the decision maker, and you have to pitch to that one. So think on these things. Financial planning, break-even analysis. There's one I have given to Elisa. It's in Excel. All the math is in place. When you get this, also with the cash flow, save those as the master ones. And then do version 1 and version 2 and version 3 so that if you make a mistake and you accidentally erase the cell and now you don't know what's screwed up, you can look at the master one. Break-even analysis, it is the first point a business owner tries to get to. It is where total cost equals total revenue. So you're not making money, but you're not bleeding cash. And, so total cost equals total revenue. And you should do it in a month where, sales should be good, and also a month where sales could be crappy. We didn't talk about this before, but there's seasonality to almost every product or service in America. If you're a landscaper, I like to think there's 5 seasons, and that's summer, winter, spring, fall, and Christmas, where you put up the decorations and you take them down. But even if it's winter, if we don't have a snowy winter and you're a landscaper and you don't plow anybody's driveway or paths, etc., guess what? You're not making money. So January can be a terrible month. February can be a terrible month. Versus in the summer when you're mowing their lawns every, 10 days or every week, it can be a good month. So pick a good sales month and a bad sales month to look at, see where your break even really is. And then you should estimate your first year of sales, and you should prepare a monthly cash flow. And there is one that I have given to Elisa, and the first column is like your startup costs. And then you should put in your sales. But you say, it's new, Donna, how do I know how to estimate my sales? Which the answer is, put in your expenses first, because a lot of your expenses will be fixed, which means they don't change based on volume. You need them whether you have 10 customers or 1,000 customers. I'm talking rent. I'm talking cell phone plans. I'm talking internet plans. So if you figure out your expenses first, you should sort of back into what your sales might be in your projections. Because I once worked with a man and he had an exclusive candy shop, and he'd listen barely to reason, but he was going to open up in a terrible location. And when I did the math, I said, you have to, and his candy was $38 a pound. It was delicious candy, but $38 is a big price tag for a Chicagoan. We're not New Yorkers. I said, do you realize that in order to break even, you have to sell 1 box of candy every 10 minutes of every day? I mean, he just didn't look at the math. So then he moved to a much better location. He didn't sign the first lease, but do prepare a monthly cash flow. But list your expenses first and back into what you think your sales revenues are. Does your business have special seasonality issues? Oh, we just talked about that. And most people do think about, swimsuits. They're mostly in the spring and summer. There's a little bit for cruise wear, although nobody's going on a cruise these days. Even Halloween candy. Halloween candy is made in the height of summer, and they get it all shipped and delivered. So usually it's by Labor Day the Halloween candy goes out. This year it went out even earlier because of the pandemic, and they wanted to sell candy. Christmas started. We weren't even done with Halloween this year, but most businesses have seasonality. So look and think about which months will be great months and which months will you just have to grin and bear it and get through. And then how much will it cost to open or expand your business? Because like I said, it's a living document, so you might be preparing a business plan because you're expanding. What are your personal financial monthly expenses? Know your financial monthly nut so that you keep a roof over your head and food on the table and the kids in school and you get a pizza on Friday. Do you have a nest egg? Do you have a working spouse? It's great if you have a working spouse who can provide insurance for you because you might not be able to afford it in the beginning. Have a nest egg so that you can survive. I mean, the first year I opened up my business, I knew my absolute break even was $36,000, and that's just about what I had in sales. So I didn't owe anybody any money, but I didn't make money, but I didn't lose money. So no, you know, I had to buy insurance. I wasn't married at the time. How much money can you invest? Is there financial support from other family members? But remember, if you borrow from family, it could be, or friends, you can lose your friends and your family can hate you. And if you think a regular Thanksgiving or Christmas meal is tough, think about it if you owe your family members money. So I advise against it if you can avoid it in any way. Do you have collateral for a traditional bank loan? And a collateral could be your house. It could be equipment in the business. An SBA loan under $50,000, you do not have to personally guarantee. They will take just the collateral for your business, just the fixed assets for your business. So if you just have a laptop and a desk and a chair, you might as well sign it away because you're not going to lose that much. But over $50,000, you have to give a personal guarantee to the SBA and probably to most banks and lending institutions. Try to get financing from your vendors, which means that if you buy the stuff and they ship it, you don't have to pay them for instead of 30 days, maybe 45 days or 60 days in the beginning, because that allows you to turn their raw materials into sales so that then you have the cash flow to pay them back for what you bought. And can you get a cosigner for a loan? Because for some you will need it because your credit might be dicey. This is the phone number and the website where you get a real free credit report. And you should look at your credit, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Look at one every 4 months because you get one a year. But if you look at it one every 4 months, the different ones, that means that, you know, you're always checking your credit report. Also, nowadays, most credit cards, Citibank has one, and Chase has one, and Bank of America. You know, they have credit cards that give you a credit score that is scored from the big three. So that's good to know. And also, I looked into the Experian Boost, and what Experian Boost does, and I don't work for them, and I don't get any money for it, and I don't know exactly how it works. But basically, if you're young and you have a thin credit file because you only have one, you know, gas credit card at Shell, and you finally just got a credit card at Kohl's or Macy's, if you use Experian Boost, it's a way for them to check that you pay your cell phone bill on time, because companies that don't typically report, because some companies only report if you're a deadbeat. But that's how it says, oh, my score went up 29 points or my score went 40 up. They are taking into account like rent payments. If you rent from a smaller landlord who doesn't report to the big three, there is a way maybe where you pay online and then, or you pay with a credit card, and that automatic payment gets recorded to Experian Boost. So you have to look into it more, but that's basically how it works. How will any loan proceeds be applied? If you're looking for a loan, make sure you mention in your business plan how you're going to use the money. Have SMART goals. That's goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-related. So when you set goals, say, you know, my first year, I knew my first year sales, they had to be $36,000. And by year 3, I'll have sales in excess of $100,000. You know, so I had a time limit. They were measurable. We were measuring sales. They were realistic. I knew if they had to be realistic, because if I didn't make $36,000 that first year, I was out of money. But I had a safety net. That's another story. But, you know, so measurable, market share, revenue, profitability, those are the types of goals that bankers like to see. And this is, oh, good, I finished right on time. And this is how to find me. And now if Elise wants to take questions, I haven't had a chance to read some of them, but.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Donna, for going over a lot of good information. And I just
My pleasure.
Thank you. And I just want to make an announcement that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Chicago BACP. I will post that in the chat box. And then, as Donna mentioned a few times, we are going to email out the handouts. If not today, tomorrow. We already have your email addresses, so don't worry about that. If you registered and if you're here, you will get it. And let's move on to some questions. First question, how often would you suggest revisiting your business plan?
I think, once a year is good, every 18 months, you don't have to do it every month, but every 18 months, give or take a little bit, that's probably a good measure.
Next question, I am currently a sole proprietor and I was thinking about converting to an LLC. I had a friend who went to an online service. What do you recommend?
I usually recommend a real attorney. There are small business attorneys that won't charge you an arm and a leg, but will make sure that it's the right form that, that really is best for you in your small business versus a sub S or, I think you get what you pay for. So I sort of really recommend a personal attorney. And, you pay them once, but it's much better to pay them once and do it right than get an online service where it doesn't conform to Illinois law or Chicago law, and then when something goes south, you're in big trouble. So I recommend a local, small business attorney. And you have that, do you still have Ask a Professional, where you have, with the pandemic, could you have where people write in questions, Elisa?
So previously when we were, when City Hall was open to the public, we did have a business advice corner, and our partner organizations are SCORE Chicago, Women's Business Development Center, Acción, and Donna, the one you are referencing for legal assistance is the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. They are doing remote counseling, and I'll post that link in the chat box so you guys can reference it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's great news.
And another couple questions came in regards to partnerships. Twofold, what form would we need for partnerships, and where do I access a partner agreement?
For the partnership agreement, I also recommend a local small business attorney who specializes in that, because I am not an attorney. And like I said, it is better to do it right the first time, because really, I saw one go so south, it was so bad. And through the law service, they were able to give the young man a free attorney, because, oh my God, the partner was going to stick him with $28,000 worth of debt, and he was a young man. So, you might be able to find one online, but I would say use a real small local business attorney, because they're not going to charge you that much. They do them all the time, and they probably can give you a flat fee or nearly a flat fee, but you'll know that it will conform to Chicago law and Illinois law.
I see several questions coming in about legal entities. Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did mention you are not an attorney and to consult with one when deciding your business entity. Do you have?
And you also talk to your accountant, because between the lawyer and the accountant, they can see what your risk of getting sued is and how it's going to affect your bottom line. So, when I first started out, I was a sole proprietor because my accountant said, "What's the chance of you getting sued?" And at the time, I was doing corporate communications. I said, well, before I ever go to press, all the clients sign off on the documents that they're exactly perfect. So really, and he said, and what if you had to keep a good client, you had to do a reprint? I said, a ginormous reprint at a wholesale price would be $10,000. He said, could you cover a $10,000 headache? I said, yes. He said, good, poof, you're a sole proprietor. But then as the business grew, I became a sub S. So, because then I did have assets, and, so you need your attorney and your accountant.
Mm-hmm. And I do see some business licensing questions coming in. While this is not a business licensing webinar, we are still processing business licenses. You can go to chicagobusinessdirect.org, or if you want to speak to a business consultant to guide you through the licensing process, you can call 312-74-GO-BIZ, and I will put that in the chat box.
I see somebody wrote, would my child need to fill out a tax return if I pay him as an employee?
Mm-hmm.
Even though if they're an employee and you pay them over $600, I think that's still the threshold. You have to, because I don't have employees now, so you have to double check. If they get over $600, you do have to fill out a 1099, and they would have to do a tax thing. But, you know, they likely would not pay much in tax, if anything, you know. So you do have to file income tax for them if it's over $600. But also talk to your accountant. You know, you can pay them till it's $600, and then they don't have to file.
A question came in. Can you clarify the author for the book, The Business Model Generation? This person found the book, but the author was Alexander Osterwalder.
Oh, well, and his partner, maybe, and they changed that, was Eric Rice. So, yes, that is the book.
Okay.
They wrote it together, and then I think they had a falling out. But, yes, that's the book.
With regards to financing, you mentioned SBA loans. Are you aware of SBA loan programs that extend loans to startups before revenue has been generated?
I'm so good. That's a great question. An SBA loan will give you money as long as you are ready to put the key in the door and start making sales. So you can only use a teeny tiny bit to buy or do the build out, you know, to buy equipment to open up the business or do the build out. Like say you were getting a $50,000 loan and you were going to use $3,000 to get a POS system, a point of sales, one of those sexy cash registers. They would do, because you can use about 10% of the whole proceeds to actually, but you'd have to show that you had a lease in good conscience. You have a letter of intent with your landlord that I've looked at this. I've told them I will rent it if I get the loan, and that you have everything else in place to open up and start making money. You can't get the SBA loan to do the build out or buy the raw materials for everything.
What resources would best assist for a wholesale business?
Wholesale businesses, I love a wholesale business because, and I love businesses that sell to wholesale. That's even a better model because then it's the wholesaler's headache to get it to the end consumer. And what was the question really again?
Just what resources would best assist for a wholesale business?
Well, I think you'd have to, you probably would need salespeople. There are websites now that specialize in hiring salespeople. So you need somebody who knows the industry that you're going to be wholesaling in and who knows the players and maybe is already selling them. Because at one point I did work for a company that made private label vitamins. And so we used to hire a lot of salespeople who were already selling all the big drug chains, other stuff, just not vitamins. They were selling them private label health and beauty aids or aspirins and, private label aspirins and Tylenol and those types of products, but they didn't carry a vitamin line. So you'll need salespeople to distributors to get them to the last mile to the store shelf.
Should a business owner create a business agreement between themselves and their business?
No, if you can't hold yourself accountable, keep your day job. And I see this one, it's $600 a year for teenagers. It's $600 a year. The threshold for doing a 1099 is $600 a year.
Should you file business and individual taxes?
You have to, not if it's a sole proprietor or simple partnership, because all that money flows to your own Social Security number. But if you have an S Corp, a C Corp, an LLC, you do file taxes, and then the money comes to you from the business. And the reason people do a sub-chapter corporate, pay yourself, by the way, pay yourself some salary. If you are going to open up an LLC or a sub-S or a C, pay yourself some salary, even though it does mean you're paying more taxes because you're paying the employee part of the unemployment tax, FICA and FUTA. Social Security and you're paying the business because you are the business. But the reason you want to pay yourself a salary is so that you are earning quarters for Social Security. Because one day you will be old and you'll want Social Security. So make sure you are paying yourself a reasonable salary, because in a subcheck S, the other way you get your money out is you pay yourself a dividend because you own basically the stock. And when you take out a dividend, you're paying less in taxes because it's not, subject to Social Security or unemployment tax. But that's why you need your accountant and your lawyer.
Question is, does that insurance work for the CEO? I'm not quite sure what insurance for the CEO.
Oh, the key employee insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can get a key employee for like a CEO, a COO, the rainmakers who are the bulk of the business, who really are the lifeblood of the business. Yes, you can. But like I said, do it when you can sort of afford it. But it's pretty affordable because the risk is small, that you're actually going to get hit by a truck. But you never know.
Can you repeat the name of the book that you mentioned?
Sure, and it's the Business Model Generation, and it is by Osterwalder. But if you it's on Amazon, and you can buy the soft cover or a used version. It hasn't changed that much, or the library, but get the real book.
When you start up, do you have to pay taxes if you have not earned an income while establishing the business?
No, but depending on the type of business that you have, you might have to file a tax return that said, I earned nothing. You just have a bunch of zeros and you submit it because, you have to tell them that you didn't earn money, but it does happen, so no. And you might have a loss that you can carry forward in another year.
If I have a partner and something happens to me, can I have my children listed as beneficiaries to my portion of the business? And would that be listed in the partner agreement?
That would probably be in the partnership agreement. Because you can, in that case, it would probably be a subchapter S or a C Corp, where you can say my stock is divided equally amongst my remaining live children. And so then the stock, but they might not have a voice in the business. They would just own the stock. So if there was a dividend, they would make money or they could sell the stock. But as far as running the business, that would probably be something in a partnership agreement. But that's why you need an attorney. I am not an attorney.
If someone is interested in opening a community center where youth and adults can receive resources, would it be best to go the nonprofit route? If so, would that process be different to this business plan?
The business plan is almost identical, but you do have to open up, and it's harder to open up. You can establish yourself as a 501c3, and the law clinic, which now has changed their name, but it's the one that you mentioned, can help you do all the paperwork and filing to become a legitimate nonprofit. But it's hard because money is tight now. It is very hard to get funding. So think long and hard, unless you know that you have somebody who's very wealthy in the community and wants you to open it up and is going to fund you. Be very careful, just because money's tight now. Even there was in the Tribune, by the way, I'll make a plug. I don't work for them. But Toys for Tots is really suffering for toys this year. You can go to line and look up where to drop off toys, because they said typically big offices, when they had Christmas parties, and I know when I used to work for a giant firm, they would have a Christmas party and you would bring a toy or a coat and they would give you a ticket for a raffle. So everybody brought toys in. And then they would take them all to Toys for Tots or Salvation Army or wherever. Now, because no companies are having Christmas parties and they don't have those wishing trees in malls because people aren't really going to malls, they're all hurting for toys. and things. So if you want to do a good deed, buy a toy, drop it off at one of the toy, just put it, it was a Toys for Tots, you put in your zip code, they tell you where to take it.
Question.
Philanthropic plug.
Do you have any suggestions or resources for business lawyers and accountants that work with beginner business owners?
I do, and if they write me privately, I will send them a list of a few so that they can, interview all of them and see who they might. But another good way to find a good small business lawyer is ask anybody you know who owns a small business. This is even better. Do you like your attorney? Do you like your accountant? Because they'll be very honest with you, and they'll say, I had one, I didn't like it, so I switched to this one, I like it much better. So, where you go to the dry cleaner, or if your uncle or brother or somebody owns a business, ask them for a recommendation. That is a good source. Or neighborhood businesses that you frequent a lot, that, as long as you're not opening up a competitive business to them, they'll probably tell you who their business attorney is or who their accountant is.
Is it dangerous to reveal too much detail in your business plan? For example, if you have a unique strategy, couldn't a bank or anyone else who views your plan replicate it?
You can. There is a thing called a non-disclosure agreement. And you can have an attorney whip one up, or you can probably find one on the internet. But sometimes people don't want to sign them. But a non-disclosure agreement says, you can read my business plan if you promise not to tell anybody about it. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's called. So you do have to be careful, but there are such things, and an attorney can help you draft a really official one. But, a banker, a lot of times they're not, unless it's the second coming, they're not really going to, they hear it's all day long. There's not that much new and different. And even if it is really new and different, if it's technology, they're no technologists. So
I don't see any more questions coming in. So just to recap, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Chicago BACP. And also the handouts that Donna has referenced will be emailed out either today or tomorrow to the email address you provided for registering to this webinar. So no additional work on your end. Just be on the lookout for that. Donna, do you have any final words of wisdom to share?
No. Like I said, I think when they get the business plan template, it will be even easier to understand. There's a set of a zillion questions. If you answer the questions in complete sentences, voila, you wind up with a business plan. And just remember, the executive summary goes first, but you write it last. When you've thought about all the other stuff, you'll be able to write a very succinct and clear summary. No, it's been a pleasure to be here this afternoon, Elisa.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone, once again, be on the lookout for the email, and the webinar is going to be posted, again, youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Donna, as always, for presenting, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.